Citizen Involvement Committee meeting. We will start by roll call. Barbara.
Okay. Mark Matheson.
Here.
Dennis Anderson.
Here.
Linda Basinger. Here. Mike Mitchell. Amy Wilhite. Here. Joyce Gifford. Here. Roy Harris.
Here.
Jesse Buss. Gordon Wilson.
Here.
Barbara Rankin. Stephen Haverbeck.
Here.
Karen Morey.
Here.
Bill McConnell.
Here.
Gary Fergus.
Here.
Good to see you. Brian Boyce.
Here.
Good to
Vern
see you.
Johnson. Vern Johnson.
The infamous Brian Boyd.
And Georgia Reagan.
And the one and only.
We're
Thank
talentless.
God for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Barbara. We will start right off with Pete. Walter has two presentations. First is marijuana regulations in Oregon City, a 9-month update, followed by equitable housing. And I'd remind everyone, if you have questions, hold off till questions are called for. That'd be great.
Thank you, Chair Wilhite. I have a few slides and we can talk afterwards. So I'm just going to bring you up to date on where we're at. So the background here is the state had legalized recreational marijuana in 2015. Oregon City had a ban on marijuana businesses, and we referred that ban to the voters, and the voters lifted the ban in November 8th, 2016, sorry. And we began accepting business license applications on January the 3rd of this year. And in last year, we also developed zoning regulations to put in place in the event that the ban was lifted. So
It's a miracle.
as far as state regulations go, in order to operate a marijuana business of any kind, you need an Oregon Liquor Control Commission license, and the OLCC and the Oregon Health Authority regulate every aspect of Oregon cannabis from production to sale, and they review and issue licenses separately. The city's role is in this process is to sign what's called a LUX form, or a land use compatibility form, that states that that business is permitted in that particular location under the city's zoning. And we also adopted what are called time, place, and manner regulations, which you can adopt under state law. This chart's a little busy, so I won't dwell on it, but this is a zoning table, and it indicates residential zones, mixed-use zones, industrial zones, and commercial zones. And then across the top, we have types of marijuana businesses: producers, processors, laboratories, wholesalers, and retailers. So the only zones that allow marijuana retail are the ones that are zoned for commercial and mixed-use commercial use. But you'll see under the industrial and employment zones, we do allow production, processing, laboratories, and wholesale. But we actually haven't had any applications for any of those types of uses. We've only had applications for retail. So some of the regulations that we have in our code, you cannot operate a marijuana business in or abutting any residential zone unless it's along unless the site is along a corridor, like Molalla. So on Molalla, you have mixed-use zoning, and right behind it, you have residential zoning. So there's an exemption if you are along a corridor. You cannot be a home occupation, mobile vendor, outdoor market, or special event. You cannot be a drive-through or a walk-up window. You've got to comply with the OLCC. And in order for us to actually turn around and approve a business license within our typical 90-day window, an applicant has to have provided a complete set of permit applications, and that includes any land use application that's necessary, and any building permit applications that are necessary. So building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And then they also have to show that they've been accepted into the OLCC permit queue in order for us to conditionally approve a business license. And until those permits are all inspected, well, constructed, inspected, and finalized, we can't actually allow that business to operate. So it's a tricky cycle for staff to administer, but we're doing it. Additional regulations, you got to show compliance with all state and local laws. You can't be operated outside. You've got to have an odor control system. Doors and windows must remain closed, and you have to have secured disposal of any remnants or garbage or anything like that. So some of these are already regulated by the state, but they're in our code as well. We have a online GIS map. I circled it with red dashed circle there. When you go to the city website and you go to the GIS mapping, there's a range of apps. There's one that anybody can go to check out the web mapping application, and I'll show you that when I'm done with this presentation. Currently, we have reviewed a total of 23 applications since January 3rd, 2017. 5 were withdrawn, 5 expired. One of those 5 expirations was the one that was at the Papalote restaurant site in 1015 Molalla. It was denied a variance because it was closer than 250, within 250 feet of Mountain View Cemetery. And that decision was made by the Planning Commission and sent out last week. There is a potential for appeal, but we haven't seen an appeal. An applicant has 20 days to appeal a Planning Commission decision. Currently, we have 6 applications that are under review, and we've approved 4, which are listed here. 2 are the Gnome Growing Chain, Beaver Creek Road and Molalla Avenue. There's one across the street from the planning offices at Wild West Emporium, where the WB Market renovation is. And the other one is the old Pizza Hut, which is where Electric Lettuce is. One pending on Main Street called Cannabis Nation. So they've been approved, but they haven't had all their inspections yet. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer those. Yeah.
Well, I'll call out your name. If you could put yourself in the queue by turning up your, that would be great. When you said corridors,
Yeah.
where are there currently corridors?
Let me show you on the map.
I will move out of your way, Keith.
Oh, I can do it from here.
Did you pay to
Yeah. So this is the map that we have, and the way this map is set up, you can zoom in, and it will show you all of the. Well, it might. Let's see, it's loading. An example would be here's Molalla Avenue. And you can see anything in orange is an area where a marijuana retailer is permitted. And so you've got Molalla Avenue.
Except it's by the cemetery.
And these, let me show you what these,
side of the street.
the red buffers are school buffers of 1,000 feet, and that's regulated by the school, the state. And the blue buffers are from the 250-foot buffer from any park. So if you're outside of one of those buffers and you're zoned for particular marijuana use, those are eligible, but obviously you've got to have the consent of the property owner, and they've got to want you as a tenant and that sort of thing. So you can look around the city and see how that affects the eligibility of sites. Singer Creek Park, and then as you go down Molalla and turn the corner onto 7th Street, essentially you have some very large buffers from multiple schools, so there's very little availability on 7th Street corridor. So that's how those buffers work. You also can turn on and off the type of marijuana business zone. So right now the default is the dispensary or retail zone, but you can turn on processor zones, and nothing showing up here, but we have some areas that are zoned mixed-use employment over by the hospital, which are potentially zones where you could process or do wholesale of marijuana in addition to retail. But we haven't had any applications there. So that's just an example of how people could use this map. This map does not show all current applications. We do get public records requests on a fairly regular basis, and we'll provide customized information for anybody that does that.
So I guess that doesn't really answer my question. Malala Avenue is a corridor.
Yeah.
What other corridors are in the city?
Okay, so anything that's on our transportation system plan that's designated as a collector, arterial, road, what else?
7th Malala and
We
Beaver Creek.
have Warner Milne Road, Leland Road, but Beaver Creek, yeah, all of those are
Okay.
higher volume traffic roads. Local roads are not corridors.
Okay. Gordon?
Maybe it was there, I didn't see it. Are there any sort of limits to like total?
Sorry, I didn't mention that, yeah.
And then also limits per owner, how many places can a?
Right, so we adopted locally you cannot have more than a marijuana retailer within 1,000 feet of another marijuana retailer. So you can, once you are approved use, nobody can locate within 1,000 feet of you. And that essentially creates a limitation on the overall number of marijuana retail areas that are available in the city. We had made some calculations, rough calculations during the public hearing process that that number could be as high as 22, but you know, that would be a huge assumption on our part. You know?
And then is one owner limited to, or could one company own all 22 in the city? Or can one owner only own like 2 in the city?
They could, hypothetically, but I don't.
They could own as many as they want, so there's no.
Yeah, it's a very diverse set of applications, yeah.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I noticed that these can't be outdoor businesses. So I assume that implies that an outdoor grow-out operation would not be allowed.
Production has got to be indoors, and it can only be in the general industrial zone.
Now, does that apply to private individuals as well?
No, we had debated that during the hearing process and Planning Commission and City Commission. Ultimately, the decision was not to try to regulate personal grows whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Good question.
Mark?
Yeah, my question might be better for Tony. How are the taxes being dispersed? The tax collection from the, how are you, I mean,
I can answer
there's a certain
what
amount
it
of
is.
money that goes to the city. How is that being dispersed? From the perspective from Berkeley Hills, since we seem to be, and this goes to Hillendale too, we seem to be burdened the majority of the corridors. Are we going to see more investment in our particular area versus other places because of the additional taxes? Seems that it should be fair.
Well, let me explain how the taxes are collected first. The state takes 17% tax off the top and then goes down to Salem. The city adopted a 3% local tax on top of that. So,
Yeah, my question is,
yeah,
how is that 3% dispersed?
I don't know.
There hasn't been a decision on how the money would be dispersed. We didn't put it in the budget because we don't know how much revenue is actually going to be generated. So once we have an idea of what type of revenues are coming in, we'll have a discussion with the city commission on what to do with those funds. But right now, they would go into the general fund.
Okay. But you do have plans on deciding what those funds are going to be allocated to, or are you going to just use it as a general fund infill?
That'll be a discussion to have with the commission and the budget committee once we have an idea of what type of revenue is coming in.
Karen?
Pete,
Yeah.
there was a confusing but creative argument about measuring distance at the Planning Commission hearing. When you say 1,000 feet apart, is that from the center of the building or is it from property line to property line?
Our code specifies it's between the nearest property line to the property line. So you could have a really large tax lot with a small building in the middle, and the buffer would be measured from the edge of that property boundary.
That's much clearer and much less creative.
Yeah, that's what we adopted locally. Okay. Yeah.
I have another question on your distance. Does that include bus stops too?
Transit centers, yeah. So
School bus stops?
No.
School bus stops are determined by where kids live, so those.
Yeah, I was just curious.
You can't, yeah, that would be. All right, any other questions for Pete on this topic? Roy?
Just real quick, and I don't know if you know this or not. Do you know if any of the other surrounding cities, if it's legal, are we seeing a big influx of people because of this? Or
Let's see, Lake Oswego has adopted, allows it, different buffers. And I believe Milwaukee too, but off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember others. Clackamas County, obviously a lot of the production is in the county because the costs are much lower and it's agricultural zoning and that sort of thing. So you can do greenhouse grows out in the county, and nobody's going to do a grow in Oregon City when they can do it in the county. But
we haven't seen any issues with people coming in because of it.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing noticeable.
Nothing noticeable. Yeah. Yeah.
I got one more question. The recent application for the Mexican restaurant that was What happened there? I mean, we've all heard some things, but it's coming from you.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So at the first hearing, the Planning Commission had heard a lot of testimony from people who were talking about activities that go on at the cemetery. So part of the applicant's argument was that the cemetery should be differentiated from any other type of park because of the type of park it is. And ultimately, the Planning Commission and staff disagreed with that after hearing the testimony of all the activities that actually went on at the cemetery that were family-oriented. And subsequently, the argument that it is not a place where children congregate was not accepted. And subsequently, it was considered no different than any other type of park. The 250-foot buffer from that park is the minimum that the city has adopted, and therefore the variance is really a big variance that they were granting. They were asking for basically 83-foot separation instead of a 250-foot. Regardless of the fact that you couldn't actually see the use from the park, and physically you would be able to, it would have been way more than 1,000 feet to actually physically walk around from one side to the other. But the general feeling was that it was not appropriate in that location. And that was well justified in the findings based on the testimony of the people that came to the hearings. So it is important to come and give testimony in those regards, because we adopted a revised set of findings, and that revised set of findings became part of a notice of decision, which was sent on September 27th. And that's where it's at right now.
Yeah. Thought I'd give you the forum.
Pardon?
I thought I'd give you the forum because there was a lot of conversation about that particular permit.
Sure.
Great.
Thanks.
All right, we'll let you move to the next topic.
Yep, okay. So the next topic is the equitable housing policy analysis. This will be shorter because we've just started this process. City Commission has made it a priority to identified equitable housing as a policy priority. And following up on that, the staff wrote a grant application to Metro. Metro offers planning grants. We successfully got a grant of $100,000, and we have hired a consultant to assist with this process. And for now, the current schedule is that this process will go through November 2018. So the first question is, what is equitable housing? It means different things to different people, and this chart illustrates what it means in terms of median family income and the type of resident that might need a type of housing. Here you have left column professions and occupations and typical wages, annual wages associated with them. Someone on Social Security or a full-time minimum wage job making around $16,000 to $19,000 a year, they're at the 0 to 30% of median family income level, and their annual household salary is indicated there. They can spend $0 to $500 of their monthly. That would be considered affordable for them. And as you go up the pay scale, you can see that someone's ability to pay for housing increases as well. And so median family income is one measure of it. I've also heard that, if you don't have to spend more than a third of your income on housing, that's considered affordable. But, if one person making $150,000 a year, a third of their income compared to somebody who's making minimum wage is vastly different. So what can the city do about housing? If we can't affect income, we can potentially affect it through housing supply and those sorts of things. So what the planning department has done is focus this project on providing a desired outcome, which would be greater flexibility in zoning and building policies and processes. We're planning to develop a series of maps and background information to guide and direct construction of housing units in appropriate locations. And I'm going to talk briefly about what types of units we would encourage. We want to remove uncertainty about the review process, and ultimately we'll be making amendments to our zoning code and development standards. So types of housing that we're talking about are a variety of things. Currently, we allow what are called accessory dwelling units in all of our single-family residential zones, but very few of them have been built. Why is that? So that's one of the questions we're going to ask. Is it a zoning code issue? Is it a market issue? Is it something to do with other costs associated with development in Oregon City? Apartments, small houses, cottage homes, things of that nature. Currently, these are all things that we're looking at as potential zoning code amendments. And then I'll go on that. The first step in this process is the formation of our project advisory team. There are 15 members. They will be appointed by the mayor tomorrow night. They're going to meet up to 5 times to review the work products that we're coming up with. They're going to serve as our conduit to the community. We have people on this committee who are people who faced housing shortages and evictions themselves, and who are tenants. We have people who are apartment managers, developers of regulated affordable housing, single-family residential people. I think about 10 of the 15 people are actually Oregon City residents, but they have special positions. And they're going to be helping us look through some of these work products. The heavy lifting and the technical details of this process will be done by the consulting team. And so when we go back to the project advisory team, we're going to be making sure that what we give them to review is understandable and not too technical, but we'll be able to review the zoning code amendments at the end of probably mid-2018. And we do want a broad public input on this. So we're not just focusing on the development community. We're actually including input from a wide variety of people. So that's it. Our next steps, right now we have chosen October 24th as our first project advisory team meeting. The consultant's doing a survey of developers this October. We've got a website up and running, and I'll show you that website briefly. I'd like to encourage you to go to this website and sign up for the mailing list so that you'll get automatic updates. We have our project overview, documents and resources, news and updates, upcoming meetings. And at the bottom of each of these pages, it's only a 5-page site, but we have the same thing on the bottom of each page. So you can type in your email address and you'll be subscribed to the list. And that's a very brief overview of this project. I'd like to come back to you and give you a more detailed update as the process gets underway. Yep.
Gordon?
I was just curious who the consulting team was that you hired, and was it an open bid process, or how were they decided upon?
It was an open bid process. We got 3 proposals. The one that was successful was from a company called Cogan Owens Green, and the principal is Steve Faust, and they are assisted by subconsultants Jet Planning, Orange Splot, who are a specialist in accessory dwelling unit architects, and we also have an engineer on that team from Wallace Engineering, and ICO Northwest are the economists on the consulting team.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Mark?
Do you see a role? What's our role? I mean, you're bringing it in front of the CIC, so what's our role? I mean,
Well, Amy and Steve, I believe, are our CIC representatives on the project advisory team, so they'll be able to keep you up to date on progress on this project. And we don't have a clear idea of all the different policy things that are going to come out of this process. We know we're not going to have zoning map amendments. You know, we're not going to be changing the colors on the zoning map, but we are going to be changing the zoning code. So project advisory team liaisons will be assisting with guiding the the opinions of the CIC. When we get a final code amendment package together, we'll be going through a full legislative process to amend the zoning code, and we'll be wanting to document any input from the CIC in that process. The consultant will be coming before you formally to get your feedback on the process at the latter stages of the review. And so at that point, I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to actually see a work product and comment on it. But you're all invited individually to contact me, sign up for the website, and give me any concerns you have.
Brian?
Yeah. I've been involved for quite some time with Metropolitan Alliance for Common Good, which has done housing projects in the past and is actively looking for more projects. And one of the things we've really found is there's a lot of different options, from tiny houses to cottage houses and other forms of housing that could help in this area, but not all of them are allowed in all jurisdictions. The county just allowed really, really tiny houses, up to 200 square feet for some housing uses. Oregon City doesn't allow them that small. And I'm not sure if they need to, but it's something that needs to be discussed. So there's a lot of things that could be looked at, and getting the cooperation of the organizations that are working on housing is really important. That's what the county is working on right now.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Pete? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have, next item on the agenda is public comments. I have one public comment. If anyone else wants to make a public comment, you could do that. We ask you to fill out a public comment sheet that are in the back and hand that to Christina. So Betty Mum, you have a comment? Just remind the group that we don't interact with the public comments. We just listen to what they have to say.
Thank you all for allowing me to be here. As you know, Shelley was the primary CIC rep and the alternate, and I have email issues, so I thought I would give a quick report on what Barkley Hills Neighborhood Association was working on. We met last meeting at the Mountain View Cemetery. There were tours provided beforehand. We're moving our neighborhood around to different businesses in our neighborhoods so that, we can expose people to that. So at the last meeting, we talked about, and the group approved, for us to meet at the Founders Clinic. I have not been able to nail that down, but I think that would be a great location. On the 10th of this month, we're going to have a steering committee meeting at the usual place up at the St. John Cemetery in the community room. And we're going to be discussing nominations. Both secretary and vice president are up for re-election. So that's kind of what we're doing. At the cemetery, we had a really nice presentation on affordable housing for veterans. It's going to go off of Pleasant Avenue at some point. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you,
Thank
Betty.
you.
All right, next on our agenda is the staff liaison updates for questions at our last meeting.
Thank you.
Christina?
Attached to the staff report, I have a list of the questions that were raised at the last meeting in August. These were also sent out by email, but I always reattach them again and provide any additional updates. I'd just like to go through them orally. There was a request to better understand who is on kind of special that are acting as CIC liaisons for special projects. And Chair Wilhite, I forgot you were on equitable housing, so I've added that on there. There's two things that can be done with this, and I'm kind of looking for direction from the CIC. This could be added to the CIC webpage as just kind of for information so you can kind of track who's doing what. I can also add this to the footer of the agenda each month. If you'd like staff to track this, just let me know how you want me to portray it. It can either be digitally, online, or as part of the monthly agendas.
I'd like to see it as the footer. Is there any comments on that?
I agree.
Okay. If I could put that at the footer, that'd be great.
Sure. Just to provide one more piece of information on the footer, I take the information that's online the day I send out the CIC agenda. So if you've presented new information to Katie Riggs, it should better be on the week before the CIC meeting because that's the information that I will grab for the agenda. So someone had mentioned that one of the neighborhood association information is incorrect. It's whatever was live the day I sent the agenda out. So that's more of a FYI to you as a group. Just make sure if you want to get that new information, that's my deadline. Okay, so I will now put this on the footer of all agendas, and I'll keep that at as projects finalize, I'll take them off. As new projects come on board, I'll add them on. Next, should CIC be sent all commission agendas? I did a little poll to all the staff liaisons of all the different commissions, and I received the answer, which I thought it was, which is every staff person kind of curates their own emailing list. Some people request to be added on personally, and those staff members have added them on. I've been new here for CIC, but if anybody wants to be added onto the monthly email list, I can easily do that. But what I'd like to let everyone know is we are working with the company that does our website and our GIS sometime this calendar year, this fiscal year maybe, is to move to an opt-in subscription process for agendas. So you would say, I, Christina Robertson Gardner, would like to get the following agendas sent to me when they're posted, and you kind of click on those agendas, and then when they get posted, it'll be automatically sent. And so therefore, the curation of staff emails will no longer be up to you. So when we get that movement, I will have a big education campaign for everybody on how to make sure you're opted in. We also are looking at potentially doing that for land use notices, not the legal requirements that are sent via mail and the signs, but for people who just are interested in finding out land use notices in your neighborhood, we're working on that as well. I don't have a ETA on that, but we're really excited, and I think it's going to be a great resource that we can add to our communities for both of those. But in the meantime, if anybody wants to be on the CIC agenda email list, let me know and I'll add you on as a special member. Because we send emails out, we can send the agendas out to anybody who requests. But as you know, curating that list over a long period is exhausting. So I'm very excited.
I do notice too that every once in a while it gets sent out instead of blindly, that we see everybody, and that usually is when things get
Yeah.
questioned.
Yeah. And then when you are no longer on the CIC, you can unsubscribe yourself. It'll be really easy.
Will the automatic be blind copies?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
The next, Roe Harris was appointed.
Officially.
This public implementation or involvement plan is linked here, and that's available also on the CIC's website. Let's see. The motion that was sent to PRAC regarding the sign or the naming of Library Park was sent to Phil on August 16th. And if you'd like to keep on with that process, please do contact Phil Lewis directly. And it's really at the PRAC process now. It's kind of outside the CIC process. Once again, the default footer, make sure you get any changes the Monday before the meeting so I can incorporate that on the footer. And there was a request to revise the meeting minutes for June, and those are on there. And they're uploaded on the agenda today in both the June minutes and the August minutes. So that's all I have for a liaison report.
Okay. Moving on to work items, first of which is the CIC elections. Because when we went to the city code, we were appointed by the mayor in January of 2016, even years, right? So this coming January, we will be reappointed, which means that all neighborhood associations need to send in new names to the mayor. Now, there have been some that have been, like say Roy, that was April 5th. Does his go from 2 years from then, or is it clean slate,
Clean
start
slate,
over?
yeah.
Okay.
So he's filling in for the past.
Okay. So every neighborhood needs to send in new names. However your neighborhood wants to do that, we're not going to go there tonight.
Okay.
That's up
On
to your
what date
neighborhood.
does that-
However, that needs to go to Katie Riggs by December 4th. Now, who is tracking that to make sure that every neighborhood gets their names in?
I will also send this as an email to everybody with this information, and Katie will be contacting you if she has not heard from you by December 4th or close by.
Okay. I would kind of like to know, maybe the executive committee could be sent a notice if there are neighborhoods that aren't, that maybe
Sure.
can help them.
I can do that.
Okay, so December 4th, the deadline to get names. That needs to be by the chair. The chair is the person who sends the names to to Katie Riggs. January 3rd is the city commission meeting, at which time the appointments are made by the mayor. There is a suggestion that, remember, we nominate primary and alternate, so please note that. And if there's going to be any, we've had some issues of people that were recommended by the neighborhoods that weren't appointed by the mayor, so you might want to have some alternate names if you felt. Alternate primaries and alternate.
Alternates.
Yeah, if there might be some, and I think most people know when there might be a little bit of a conflict. And then because our January 1st falls on the first Monday, there will not be a CIC meeting in January, so our elections will be held at the February CIC meeting, which is February 5th, and it will be done from the floor like all the other committees are done, and at which point we will determine, based on the criteria, we will have a chair and a vice chair, and by then we will know if we need a secretary. There's been some proposals that we don't need to keep as many minutes because this is a recorded meeting. And so the city commission is going to be talking about that once we get their final word. If we don't need a secretary to take minutes, then we can decide if we need a secretary or if we want to go like the other commissions that are committees that just have chairs and vice chairs. So that is our elections information. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, it seems like, I know, I understand what you're saying about everybody is kind of having to reset for the next election, but these positions hold for 2 years, correct?
The positions.
Of
what
CIC
positions?
members.
The CIC members go.
Are annual or are they?
They are the January of every even year. And then if something goes out in between and someone new comes on, they're filling that term of the other person. So all CIC members go the same from January of an even year to 2 years prior.
So there are some elections and some members have been appointed in the off years.
Doesn't matter.
The
Positions, 2 years.
Yeah, even more they can replace someone that was currently on it. But everybody has to be reset the January 1st of all even years.
I'll give you an example. In Berkeley Hills elections, both CIC positions were put up for election. That has reset. So my 2 years starts this year.
You can nominate the CIC. Not the CIC appointments are from January 1st of an even year to January 1st of an even year. If your neighborhood has different timelines that they want to submit names, that's up to them, but you're basically refilling.
We're not talking about an issue of submitting different timelines. We're talking about the position being put up for election when somebody
You don't
is already
elect CIC
sitting.
officials.
Yeah, kind of.
That's for the members to choose. It's a member who chooses the CIC. It's the mayor who appoints them.
Well, you can whatever your bylaws are, you can submit names, but the official positions go from January 1st of an even year to December 31st of the odd year. So whenever you came on, if you came on in the middle or if you came on December 30th of an odd year, it doesn't matter.
So Shelley's vote, since Shelley came in on the odd year, just as an example to your logic of she was not appointed.
Yes, if someone comes in mid-term, they're filling the vacancy that was created by someone else leaving.
No, it was filled.
Well,
in particular, but it wasn't vacated in Berkeley Hills. It wasn't vacated because somebody left. It was vacated because the chair.
It doesn't matter.
Put out. It should matter, and that's the point. It should matter.
Okay, Mark, I'm telling you how it is. You can discuss this all you want with the city commission, but this is how it is.
Well, no, because actually what
Next
happens
on our agenda.
I'm sorry, but what happens in the neighborhood
Next on our agenda is the draft goals of the work plans, and we'll be moving on to that now.
Sure, and Chair Will, I'm happy to talk to Mr. Matheson after the meeting about kind of my understanding of how the CIC elections
Mr.
happen are.
Matheson doesn't need clarity. Mr. Matheson understands that CIC members come from members of the neighborhood association. It's not the other way around. This is a long argument that we've had in this panel.
Okay, we're not going to have any more tonight.
Of course we don't
Christina?
have those kind of arguments here.
We are working on talking about the draft goals and the work plans for our 2017 and 19.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Wilhite. Does everyone have a copy of the red line version of the draft goals? If not, we can forward. I think I have 2 left. I'll pass it down this way. Perfect. All right.
We missed.
Oh, we're going all that way.
I could have folded them for you.
All right, you got them.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can share.
So as you recall, the CSC reviewed the draft goals at the August meeting. This was a combination of looking back and reviewing the last 2015, 2017 goals and incorporating comments I've received over the previous month, especially related to the grievance process. And so what you have here are the revised goals based on our conversation at the last meeting. Most of the substantive comments are in the back page. Goal 3 has been revised to share resources and tools that can help maintain active neighborhood associations, and removing the bullet about creating a buddy system. As a staff, I'd like to add one more goal based on conversations with Chair Wilhite and Vice Chair Maury about the election process. The wording Title II of the CIC code just uses an odd word of appoint. Generally, the other other commissions and boards use elections, the general elections process. So what you're going to be doing in February is your interpretation of how to appoint the chair, vice chair, and secretary. And so my recommendation is to amend the CIC code sometime in the next cycle to be consistent with the election process of other boards and commissions using the term election versus appoint. So I'm available if anybody has any questions or if there was any discussion. If there is consensus tonight, so it'd be good to adopt the goals. Ideally, these are adopted at the beginning of a fiscal year. And so as we get to October, it'd be nice to be able to adopt goals so we can move forward on our work plan.
How about I move we adopt these with the addition of Goal 6 as stated by Christina.
I'll second that.
All right. Mr. Matheson.
Do we need to have any
Oh, I'm sorry.
discussion?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no discussion, so now you may call.
So,
You
Mr.
have
Matheson
discussion,
is.
Or you want to vote?
I asked for discussion. No one had anything to say. You said no. I said we will go
Oh,
on.
no, I was going
Okay,
towards-
roll call.
Yeah, I have a, if you want to have a discussion, I'll
I
have a
closed the
discussion.
discussion.
Oh, that works, and the answer is no.
Okay. I'll try this from the top. Mr. Matheson.
No.
Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell. If not, who's with Caulfield?
Nobody. We don't have an
Nobody, okay.
alternate.
Ms. Gifford?
Yes.
Mr. Buss, so is there somebody else from McLaughlin tonight?
Yes.
Gordon?
Ms. Rankin?
Yes.
Ms. Maury?
Yes.
Mr. McConnell?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Or Tower Vista
No,
alternate?
we have neither.
I don't think we have neither. And Mr. Boyce?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. I will create a clean copy for this, and I'll attach this on the CIC's website. And we can start moving forward on our goals and work plan.
Before we get to the minutes, I have a out of order question.
Well, that would be out of order.
and a future agenda item. Now that we've identified who's on the different committees, we don't have a place on the agenda for people to report on what's going on in their committee.
As at other committee meetings, they usually just do that at roundtable. So that's what I would. Okay. I would ask that you just do that.
Because I have something to report.
That would be my recommendation too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, approval of the minutes. So we have draft minutes of June and August. Welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you.
Do we have any changes or comments for either of those months? All right, I'd entertain a motion
them in order.
pass those minutes.
I move that we approve the June 5th, 2017 minutes. Can we do both together?
Yes.
And the August 7th, 2017 minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Linda? All right, and these, I believe we just said we would vote by hand, so all in favor? Any against? And any abstaining? All right, motion passes. And we are at Karen's favorite, roundtable.
I love it.
And this time, we are going to start right off with our commission liaison.
Wow.
Welcome.
Mr.
Shaw.
Thank you, thank you. Just a couple of things here. You know, we have had the Oregon City Homeless Solutions Coalition group in operation for about 8 months now. Either the first meeting or the second meeting, very small group, 4 or 5 people, chief band, a couple business people, I think there was 2 commissioners there, and a couple homeless folks. And we decided, you know, we're kind of batting around, well, here's the issues, here's the problems and stuff. So we kind of asked turn over and ask the homeless folks, what could we do, you know, that could really influence, you know, what is going on here and address some of the problems? And they said, well, bathrooms. So last Friday, was it? We had the ribbon cutting for the porta potties for the homeless folks, and it's right on Main Street in Oregon City. So kind of proud of that. I mean, it's on Main Street. So many cities are kind of shoveling the homeless folks out of town and all of this, and we're kind of providing opportunities for them to better themselves, by doing this and giving them enough, and helping some of the problems in the neighborhood. So, and these just aren't porta potties, these are the art potties. I don't know if anybody got to see these yet or not, or saw them on TV. They're actually on TV. But we had a person actually wrap these in I think one's a scene from the old cable bridge from Oregon City Westland, and the other one's kind of a Star Wars thing or something, and one of them's handicapped. But they're right down next to the ice house in that municipal parking lot down there. So we're going to monitor that to see how that goes. We have an agreement with Clinkscales, who owns them, and they're going to maintain them for a year or so, I think, aren't they, Tony? Mm-hmm. Which is really a good deal. We've got a great partnership there. So we're trying to address some of the issues in the neighborhood by doing this. So also kind of keep in mind when we did when the county did their housing count for the homeless here 4 months ago or so, they spent a couple days and went around the county and talked to as many homeless people and stuff that they could and find out who they are. And I was surprised because the number one sector of the homeless people in this county are women and children. And number two are people with jobs with no place to live. So, and number three is the mental folks, down there. So 25% are the mental folks. But here we are up here, we have this homeless problem, but if we had housing, we could take care of a lot of this. We could take care of our homeless problem. So I've been working with the county on trying to figure out, because they want to sell part of their project up there in Park Place. And when I heard about that, I said, well, let's work together and see, we don't want to sell all of that. Now that we see we have this homeless issue in Oregon City, that maybe we can keep some of that affordable housing that's up there, and then they can sell whatever they need to. They're trying to raise revenue to put into new living units elsewhere in the county, which I understand. But we don't want to give all of our affordable housing up when all of a sudden Oregon City has the highest homeless population in the county. So, and they've been very receptive to that. So that's been a good thing. Let's see, I think that's, and lastly, I also sit on a committee. It's called Oregon City Together, OC Together. I don't know if you folks know about this. This is a group that's trying to curtail the use of marijuana as much as they can in the school system, especially the high school. And so they do a lot of education efforts, and the one they're doing here is going to be this October 26th. This is called Oregon City Together presents Teen Brains Are in Our Hands. Wondering why teens do what they do. Wish I would have known this about 40 years ago. But it's they're going to have two speakers there, and this is at a high school in the evening. There's actually there's going to be a little spaghetti dinner and stuff. National behavioral and neuroscience expert Karen Williams will be there to talk about substance abuse and how it affects developing adolescent brains. And then Officer Jermaine Galloway, which I believe is one of our officers. Jermaine Galloway, his motto is, "You can't stop what you don't know." He'll discuss the middle schoolers and the teens and what they're going through with drinking and drug use. And I think he might be a resource officer, I'm not sure, within our school system. So this could be a good program. The one they did last year was excellent. And so I've got some flyers here and stuff. If you want to take one, maybe scan it in and send it to everybody in your neighborhood and stuff. So I don't have these available to you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I wasn't able to go to this last week's meeting of the homeless. Could you give a little update of what happened there? Were you able to go? They were going to break off into groups and...
Yeah, broke off into groups, and I can't remember all of them, Chair Hyde, Will Hyde, but the one I was on the student homeless issue. We have about 300 homeless students in this county, and we're trying to figure out how to address that. Man, I can't remember all of them. Oh, there was something about, I think it was the food pantries. I think the county spoke about what they're doing for the transitional housing for homeless, which could be a building here just on Washington Street that they're looking at that may give us some transitional housing for these folks. Because that's just, like I say, women and children, and people with jobs, we just have to find this housing stuff, and these guys can get on their way and stuff. So, but I think I'm bringing that up. Next time I'll take notes.
Hopefully I'll be there, but...
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Tony?
There we go. So just a couple updates for those of you who have been down the Cove lately. The Main Street extension is finally open, so you can start using that route again. Looks great down there. Still a lot of construction going on with the apartment development, but the street is open. On Saturday, October 28th, from 1 to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 17 on South End Road, Clackamas Fire District will be putting on fire prevention and safety activities, so they invite the public to come out to that event. Talking about everything you can do for emergent escape planning, fire prevention. So great opportunity to go see the South End Fire Station and meet with those folks. We also have this Wednesday, October 4th at 10 a.m., the Oregon City Hilltop Fire Station 16 groundbreaking ceremony for anybody interested in attending that. And then the deadline to apply for open city boards and committees, the deadline is October 5th, so it's coming up pretty quick here. One opening on the Budget Committee, one opening on Enhancement Grant Program, 3 openings Historic Review Board, 2 openings on the Library Board, 3 openings on Natural Resource Committee, 3 openings Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, 2 on Planning Commission, 3 on Transportation Advisory Committee, and 1 on Urban Renewal. Those aren't all vacant. Some of those are just, their term is up, so they may have incumbents reapplying, but certainly encourage anybody who is interested in any of those to put an application in. That would be my updates for tonight.
Is the bike path open? And if it isn't, do you know when it would be open?
The bike path along
through the
Clackamas Trail,
Cove?
it's open.
Oh, okay, cool.
What was the date, excuse me, of the South End Fire presentation?
The open house for Clackamas Fire on South End is October 28th. It's a Saturday from 1 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Christina?
I don't have anything.
Joyce?
Okay, well, it's good to be back. Missed you all last month. So I don't know, last month I didn't notice in the August minutes anything mention about National Night Out. I know Karen and Roy and I and Vern showed up there to represent the CIC and shared a booth along with Public Works, and it was a good thing we were sharing a booth because we were kind of short-staffed there, but there weren't a lot of people that came. It was that 104-degree night, and it was low attendance, but those of us who did show up had a good time. And I won a whole basket full of bubbles and kites and things, fun things to do. The safety fair on September 16th, I went to the safety fair and could not find a CIC booth, so I just wanted to know how that fell through the cracks. I know that since I did National Night Out, I said I'm not doing the safety fair too. So I just, so something to talk about, was somebody there and I just missed them, or was there some communication that happened at the August meeting that I didn't watch the entire meeting. I tried to watch some of it remotely where I was out. And let's see, Hillendale neighborhood, we had a picnic in July. And Tony came and was our main speaker, and that was a lot of fun out at Hillendale Park. And we are having our meeting tomorrow night. So Roy, do you want to tell them about what's on the agenda? So Roy will take over from there for.
Okay,
HNI.
tomorrow night's our general meeting that we have every 3 months. And we have basically 2 presenters. One person is presenting on the new housing development that's going in over at Wesley Lynn. And then we'll have Clackamas County Clackamas County Fire District giving just an informational presentation, and we'll have our elections for the next period. And it's at the normal location, Living Hope Church over on Myers Road at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, if anybody wants to come here. That's pretty much it.
I just want to, reiterate that for those, this is all about where the voters have voted twice not to allow the road along the edge of Wesley Lynn Park, where we are required to give them an easement. So Icon Development is coming back again tomorrow night to talk to the neighborhood association. And so if anybody wants to hear about what's going on, Icon would love to hear from you, so please come to the meeting.
Joyce, I went by there the other day and it said the road was closed, the walkway from Leland Inn. Do you know anything about that?
I hadn't heard that.
Sewer work?
It could be that they were doing sewer work.
There was no posting as to why, so I didn't know.
I've been getting a few emails and they've been wanting to do some spraying over there.
Because usually they put up signs if they've
Yeah,
sprayed.
and it's
and
been rescheduled a couple times because of the rain. So it might have been for that. That's just a guess.
Yeah, because they hadn't posted. Usually they post if it's spraying, but okay, you don't know.
That's all.
All right, Barbara?
The Park Place neighborhood had their steering committee meeting on September 18th. We have new leaders, and we met at the Alliance Academy School. We had 9 steering committee members and 9 citizens come to the meeting. Well attended, all about land use and updates with what's going on. We discussed the Abernathy Landing, which is the property behind us, the old airport, which is being developed. We discussed Oregon City Manor, because that's in our neighborhood. And we heard about the sale of the property that you mentioned, Brian. And also talked about the hotel. And we all felt that was a really good idea to go through. The next general meeting will be, a general meeting, October 17th. And so far, P. Walter is booked to come, and we're waiting to hear from Mr. Conkle. Yeah. I just have one comment to suggest that when this Abernathy Landing project is unique. It's slightly hilly. It's a very subtle grade. But in order to take care of the flood control, it has to be graded. Cut and fill or whatever you want to call it. So speaking as a homeowner that lives on that line, you may have heard this story. I looked out the window one day and there was 16 feet of dirt behind my fence. I had no clue. So I think when something like that comes up, that's that extraordinary, and I'm not the only one, there was a whole row of neighbors there with the same issue. It should be explained to the homeowners. We're going to be developing, we're not going to leave 16 feet of, but we had no clue. So I called, as you know, everybody I know.
There's a mountain growing in my backyard.
Please help. And now they've taken it back down to 8 feet, which is the maximum it can be. But even 8 feet is a stretch when you're not used to that elevation. We were expecting 97 homes, but we thought they'd just be there like our house is there.
So they're up 8 feet in the ground?
They're
Above.
8 feet up higher.
Up above than,
Yeah.
Above the existing ground.
Yeah, come by and see it. It's
That would be
wonderful.
a shock. I would.
So that's all.
Okay. The Gaffney Lane neighborhood met on September 14th, and I pulled the dirty trick of having a family emergency that day, and my secretary had to lead, and she did a wonderful job. They approved, we had some bylaw revisions to take care of, changing our meetings to every other month, which also meant that we changed our elections to be at our November meetings instead of our October meetings. So the bylaw revisions were proposed, they went out, we had no problems passing that. So our bylaws were updated and revised effective September 14th. Hopefully that is on the list. We had a land use presentation about a company coming in. They're wanting to come in. It's basically a custom cabinet fabrication facility, a green building design on First Street. They're hoping as part of their building to have a big community room. Kind of sounds to me like maybe something like BCT does. They want to be really involved in the community. So they were open to, if that goes through, that they would like to have people feel free to have meetings there, whatever that might look like. So people were excited about that. I noticed that we didn't have Public Works on our agenda tonight, and I received an email today with a letter that I would like to share. It is from Public Works. The McLaughlin Promenade wall caps replacement project is scheduled to begin next week, the week of October 9th. Pioneer Waterproofing will be repairing and replacing 51 degraded wall caps along the promenade and expect the work to take 6 to 8 weeks to complete. I think this is what John Lewis showed to us last time, but this is officially when it's going to be happening. During this time, there will be temporary detours around the construction zone. The funding for the project is a combination of funds from the Enhancement Grant Program and the General Government Grounds Maintenance Fund. If you have any questions, you are asked to contact the city project manager, which is John Burrell at Public Works. So I thought I would share that with you. The other items that I had have been covered, so.
Okay, so our next meeting is in November. I have a compliment for Public Works, even though John isn't here tonight. I'm personally thrilled that the police department bond measure passed, which means that somewhere in the next 2 years there'll be construction in my backyard. However, one of the oak trees apparently felt threatened by the passage of the bond measure. At 2 a.m. the next morning fell into the middle of Lynn Avenue. I did wake up to chainsaws at 7 a.m., which is an unusual sound, but it took them 1 day and a bit to completely clean that tree out. And you would never know there'd been a tree there. There's a little gravel where there would be pavement otherwise, but they completely dug the stump out and everything. They did a beautiful job. They were very patient. Drivers on Lynn Avenue don't like one-block street closures and were very obnoxious. And I could actually hear them dealing with some of the driving public. So I commend Public Works, though. They did a beautiful job. And the, I've been on the computer all day, and the word trail comes into my mind, and I'm starting to say Oregon California Trails Association. How about the McLaughlin-Kanema Trail Committee has concluded their work. There will be additional presentations of the final recommendation to the Planning Commission, City Commission. I think there's a list of places that will be seeing the end of our efforts.
The CIC?
I don't think CIC was on it because it's moving toward approval now.
Yeah, Kelly came at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, they came in at the start. We roughly started out with 3 options. Option A would have run along the existing boardwalk along the river. Option B came down the promenade through the city parking lot, past the VFW hall, and then briefly down the highway, and then kind of cutting up and going through Old Kanema Park, and then everything ends up in the Kanema Children's Park. The option C would have run up South End Road. After a few alternatives on that one, it would have gone up South End all the way to 5th, and would have completely bypassed Old Kenema Park. So looking at the pros and the cons, the old boardwalk is in abysmal shape, would have been very expensive to fix up. And when you get to the end of it, you have a conflict with the train tracks, and there's also no signaled crossing on McLaughlin. So basically you end up on the bad side of the road in Kenema instead of where you want to be. The South End Road had some constraints, especially amount of space that was available for a multi-use trail. So we did concur that option B was the best choice. There's some parts of it that we're hoping that with future development could be a little bit better. There is a stretch that will be right along the highway, and that may eventually be able to be moved farther away from the road, but otherwise it will give you a continuous walking path or biking path from the promenade up into Old Kenema Park and through the neighborhood to the Kenema Children's Park. And again, that will be showing up on agendas until it's adopted by the City Commission. And we're done, and we done good. My cohorts from Kenema here were on it too, so. And the neighborhood, I think, got a good chance to get their voice in on concerns because, as we pretty much all know and jokingly point out, Kenema roads were designed for a single wagon. And so parking and modern motor vehicles trying to go two ways, plus pedestrians and bicyclists, is going to be something to be worked on as the use of that trail becomes popular.
I did forget to, I was going to address Joyce's question about the safety fair. I was one of the people that had signed up for that, and I was actually out of town. I had emailed Christina to let her know there was confusion about dates, there was confusion about where the equipment was, and everything kind of just fell through, so that's what happened to that.
Okay, it's been a bit, so I'll go back a little longer but it's also been a little slow in our neighborhood. We reviewed the proposal by just updating, I think, of Cutter Construction, who has a trucking company primarily near Clackamas River Drive, near Forsyth, back at the dead end road there. And we also talked with people over the Hampton Hotel and apartment proposal that is across from the covered wagons, the end of the Oregon Trail people. Uncovered. Yeah, the now uncovered wagons, supposedly covered wagons, I guess is the way I should put it. And also,
that's $74 million in today's money.
Yeah, it's a huge project, actually. But we also have, over time, repeatedly met with Pacific Property Search on the Clackamas Cove projects, both of them. The one that's going to be starting maybe, I'm not sure if they're starting this year, I think they are. But it may be the next year.
For phase two?
For phase two, yeah. So anyway, and we've talked with various other things over time, but those are the main things that we've got.
Are your meetings still happening?
Irregularly, and usually what's happened a lot is that we get a request from someone that doesn't fit in with timing-wise with our regular meetings, and we'll do a special meeting because they need to get. That happened with Pacific or Cutter Construction that didn't quite fit in.
How are you notifying people of the meetings?
Emails, and in the future we'll be going back to the mailers.
Right. Would you feel it beneficial to team up with another neighborhood? I'm concerned about the regularity.
That would be a possibility. We have to talk about it.
It would be nice if you would let us know how we could get on that mailing list, that email list, when your meetings are going to be
Yeah.
happening.
Because we have people asking and we don't know what to tell them.
Yeah. I've heard that, you know.
Communicate with us, Brian, please.
And Brian, can you
We
give a
wanna
little
help.
bit of update of what the Parks Foundation is doing?
The Oregon City Parks Foundation? Yeah, we managed to get 2 grants. One of them we thought we'd lost because they didn't announce it until 3 months after the time they said they were going to announce it. And so we just assumed we weren't going to get it. And then within days of the second grant, which was through the City of Oregon City and Metro, we got that one as well. So we're working on a project right now on the promenade, which the news on that project with the end caps is of interest, which I'll find out the details about tomorrow probably.
That's up above on the.
Yeah, right, but one of the grants was, and we've started working on, it is along the section where there's end caps.
Oh.
Yeah, so at the very end, down to Veterans of Foreign Wars. But we're also doing a bigger project in Waterboard Park, which I'm trying to get a hold of one of our Lewises, Phil Lewis, and get a meeting with the contractor, and plus there's volunteer work going on in there right now. So we're trying to get to the point where we have accomplishments, because we just started last year. It's a very new organization. So, but we're raising funds in addition to the grants. So have a woman that's a sort of a fireball that's got a bottle drop program going that's raised over $4,000. Yeah, it's just amazing, and it's ongoing. It's got a lot of businesses involved collecting, getting rid of their bottles and giving and donating to us, you know, so.
Drop in for parks, 10 cents at a time.
We just started a project for an auction the first weekend of December, just in time for Christmas. So that's another project that we're doing that we have high hopes for. And another Ball of Fire woman is running that one, a different one than the other. So anyway,
We had a backup too.
we've got, you know, some things going on, but, you know, we want to keep expanding and growing and helping the city parks. So
Karen had a backup.
Well, while we're on parks, on Saturday, September 23rd, the cemetery the Mountain View Cemetery had their first Solve cleanup. Solve actually reached out to historic cemeteries this year and added them to the Beach and Riverside Cleanup Day. We ended up with almost 40 people showing up. Huge thank you to Boy Scout Troop number 140. Those kids worked, and it was kind of fun because we had a staff person who volunteered to work that day, and she taught them the right way to remove moss from the surrounds on family plots, and right tools and right techniques, and those kids were all excited that they were getting things cleared up, and we got a lot of work done. Solve is wonderful to work with. It is the best support I have ever seen for a volunteer project. So we're kind of hoping they do that again next year, and then we're doing our usual cleanup October, I think 13th, it's a Friday, when the ROTC comes out, and we also accept other willing hands that day too. So the cemetery looked a lot better.
Yeah, I went in there last week and I was amazed at how different it looked back in the back.
Good.
Yeah, it looked good.
yeah, we've at the Oregon City Parks Foundation, we have found Solve to be very helpful, and they're a real good source for equipment and publicity as well to get those volunteers out. Our very first big volunteer effort, we got 32 or 33 people in there, partially through Solve. We got some people we weren't expecting because of their publicity.
Oh, great.
Good partner.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah.
Nope, I'll pass.
Barbara gotcha. Mark?
Oh, I think
not his
the chair took care of everything. We've just been, our numbers at our meetings are, as we talked in our little meeting committee that we had with Gordon about representing neighborhood associations and fleeting numbers and actually having an accurate representation. Well, Barkley Hills' numbers are kind of going down. It's getting concerning, so we'll work on it, I imagine. But that's the chair basically took care of all the things that were happening, so I don't need to add anything.
Thanks, Mark. Gordon?
I don't have anything. I'm pretty sure McLaughlin Neighborhood Association has a steering committee this Thursday at 7, either at the library or the fire station.
Okay. Dennis?
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion on Solve. I think that would be good for our Pioneer Cemetery. Since we gather a small group in the community and we clean that up every year for the Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
The other thing that I could, cast off to this group is the collaboration between the Parks Department and the group involved with putting together the bench for the Children's Park for Oscar Geisler. It's complete. They installed just last week, Between the Rain, the plaque that accompanies it, and we're set with a little expectation on having a little event to introduce it to the community that doesn't know. And it's we're waiting for the daughter of Oscar, Lorinda, to gather her family together and have a little event to, and I think she's really moved and she thinks it's quite special. And so, kudos to the city for working with a neighborhood and, giving a member in that community some kind of deserved remembrance. So
I'd like to know when that happens.
I will, and I was just I got a call today, and they're on board with it, and they remember him well. He was quite an advocate for all parks, also the bigger cemetery park, and so yes, when I find the date, I'll make sure that everybody knows.
Yeah, Dennis, I was going to say, I want to know, because Oscar was on the Friends of the Mountain View Cemetery.
Yes,
In
he
fact,
was.
I felt badly because I went to 2 meetings, and before the 3rd meeting, Oscar had died, and it was like I was so happy to be on a committee
And
with
it's just
Oscar.
a year.
Yeah.
It's just a year, couple weeks, but thank you for your concern.
He's wonderful.
And we had our next general meeting is in November, and anything else?
Steering committee coming up.
Yep. That's it.
Great. Gary? Bill?
I gotta give it to Bill.
The South End Neighborhood Association had their last meeting in August, and we had a fairly good turnout in spite of the heat. We chose to meet in air conditioning this year instead of getting steamed out after the last 3 or 4 years. But Karen Morey was nice enough to come by and talk to us about Oregon City history that I think everybody found very fascinating, and we very much appreciated it. Thank you. Next meeting is on October the 19th, and we will be getting an update from the fire department, as well as the current land use issues that are going on in the city, and a Riverwalk update from Kelly Reed.
Great. All right. Does anybody have any backups to their side of the room? All right. With that, go ahead.
Chair, well, I have a confirmation that I have no liaison questions
Oh,
this
I
month,
have
or
one.
if I do, let me know.
I do. I have that right here to do it. I forgot. Add liaisons to the footer.
Okay.
That you were going to do that.
Okay.
That's our
Done.
one follow-up. Your only task.
Killed it.
All right. With that, notice the time. We are adjourned at 8:24.
Good.